Happy Saturday. This is typically what we do on our Saturdays. We go out to our pool and we run our test. And weekly, or people run it more than once, but at least on a Saturday, typically you can see the folks go out to their tool sheds and pull out, a various range of products in order to validate what is in their pool. And right now, as you can see, this is typically what people use. There's a test strip. And then there are the reagents, and all those are readily available in all pool stores, and a lot of folks rely on these. Well, we're kind of moving into the next generation here, where everything is app-based and everything is technology-driven. And the inherent flaws with some of these things, especially when you're in Georgia and Texas, is if you're trying to read what color green or color red that I have in these vials, and did I really put in 5 drops of phenol red, or did I only get 4.5, right? Did one stick in the vial? And when I run my test strip, is it expired? Did it get wet? Was it exposed to humidity? A lot of these things affect how these things read. So you're really going to be subject to the technology itself. And then not only are you subject to the technology, but also how you interpret what those results really are. How close am I? Am I really close or am I not? And then once you get that reading, now what do? I now know I've got this color and it matches to this. How do I get my pool or spa to be in the balanced range? What do I add? And a lot of folks overcompensate. They put in what they believe is the right amount, and then it skyrockets or goes way down, and they have to counteract it with something else. So they end up spending a lot of money, and they get a very strong yo-yo effect where, hey, my chemistry's all over the map. So what do? They take a water sample down to your local pool store. Well, water samples are also very subject, because when you take a water sample, if you don't take it at the right depth, if you take it during certain parts of the day, if you put it in the wrong container, if you leave it in your car for too long, all those water samples are subject to all of those elements. So when you bring it to your pool store, they read whatever it is you bring in, and then they make recommendations based on that water sample. Now, a water sample is a snapshot in time of the pool chemistry that you're reading. So when you take it, it's at 1 p.m. in the afternoon on this Saturday. Well, your pool goes through multiple changes between time of day, how high the sun, water, how many people were swimming in your pool the day before, or before you took that water test. So it's subject to a lot of conditions that the pool store is not going to be made aware of. Because if I tested my pool on Saturday and I had a pool party on a Sunday, well, my water chemistry on Saturday is different than Sunday. Right? I had a bather load now on Sunday, plus I had probably a heavy Georgia, UV Sunday. So how do I take those into consideration? Well, the key is getting readings multiple times a day and then over time. So you want to take your water test because it's a good barometer, but you want to be able to see that chemistry over time. So imagine if you were to do what Sutro does, you would have to go outside and take 3 tests a day, 8 hours apart, which could mean a 2 a.m. test, and do it religiously 7 days a week. Well, nobody's going to do that. So what do? They fall out and hire a service tech. Well, service technicians are inherently, again, once a week type services. So they come to your home, they take a test on a Wednesday, and then they add or they superchlorinate in anticipation of a week between visits. So what does that mean? It means they drop more chlorine than they should. And most of the time they tell you don't swim in the pool for an hour or two after they leave because it's super chlorinated. But they're taking into consideration that drop over the next 7 days. Well, so what happens now if you have a pool party on a Saturday and you deplete your chlorine and you have to wait till Wednesday for your service technician to arrive? Well, that guy's walking into your backyard and your pool is probably already started to change, and he now needs to shock it, clean out your elements, and do additional work. So the idea is to keep that pool consistently at balance. And you can't do that once a week. You have to do that in a consistent basis. So Sutro takes that guesswork out of your pool, and we'll mention pool or spa for the purpose of this call, to keep it consistent. And Sutro is a device that is it's a floating robot that sits in your pool. It is a fishing line back to you with data. So you're always looking at the water chemistry figuratively remotely, and it floats in your pool and sends back measurements 3 times a day. So it runs pH, free chlorine, and alkalinity 3 times a day back to your app. But not only does it read that chemistry, it makes a recommendation of what to do based on the size and the pool that you have, and based on the sanitizer that you're using, and based on what you enter in for parameters of your pool. So you'll enter in salt, maybe you enter in UV and ozone and other things it takes into consideration in order to sanitize that pool. But wouldn't it be cool if you could test your pool every day? Well, you can't, right? We work, time, or you tell your kids to do it, and of course they don't do it. So we'd have to do it. But now we'll use technology to do it. And this is where Sutro comes in. And how does that work? Well, Sutro floats in your pool. It looks like this. I'll show you a version of it in a minute, but it actually floats in your pool. This is a true working robot. This actually runs a true reagent test. So when we went back to this here, excuse me, and I'll show you how it works in a second, but this reagent right here, this kit, we actually shrunk it down to microfluidic size. So inside this robot is an actual microfluidic chip that we actually run that was taken from the medical field, where instead of you dropping in 5 drops of phenol red like you would into your test kit, we drop 1/50th of a drop. And we'll get to that very shortly. This floats in your pool. This is a transmitter receiver that actually communicates with the Sutro and then communicates with your Wi-Fi or LTE and sends the signal back to the cloud. In the cloud, it comes to our app, and this is the app you would see on your phone. And once you set up your pool and you set up all your parameters as it's showing you here, it will then start to send you daily readings 3 times a day and give you the state of your pool every 8 hours. And once we test for the free chlorine, the pH, and the alkalinity, and you'll get 3 boxes as you saw, when they're yellow, green, or red. Very simple to understand. See, yellow, green, and red. If it's green, you're good. If it's yellow, it's trending one way up or down, but it's okay. But if it's red, you'll usually get an action from Sutro that says, hey, do this in order to get your pool back to being healthy. It takes that guesswork out of what do I do now that even after I've dipped the strip, what do I do? And how do I make sure I don't add too much or not enough? And since it's doing it 3 times a day, if you have a pool party on a Saturday, it's going to tell you on Sunday what you need to do to get that pool back to where it should be for the course of the week. So that's the high end overview. Let's break it apart. Let me show you what's going on inside this Sutro, because a lot of folks have used other products, and there are other products that were ORP, and this was a product that was out there. If you can see my thing, this was called Fin. And Fin was a product that came out that used a technology called ORP. And ORP was basically it's an electric charge that actually comes out in millivolts that determines the sanitization capabilities of your water. Well, the inherent flaw with ORP systems is that it gets masked by CYA. And CYA is that chemical in those tabs. If you're using a tab feeder that is designed to stop the sun from destroying chlorine, the CYA is protecting that chlorine in your water so it doesn't get burned off. But at the same time, it also masks the ORP. Well, it doesn't burn off. It doesn't go away. So as you use more tabs, you develop more CYA. And the more CYA you develop, the less capable your pool becomes of killing, your chlorine becomes of killing the germs. So you have to add more. So there's an inherent cycle there within floating within the 2-inch tabs. So what do? We basically now use a reagent-based test. So this is the exact test we just talked about. And we shrunk it down to this little microfluidic chip. So inside this chip, we're actually running a test. We're actually drawing in 1/50th of a drop of phenol red, 200 drops of water. We spin it around with a little metal ball, and then we pass light right through this chip. And that then takes away the human element. Some of the folks that read this are colorblind and they can't see what color red they're looking at. We take all that guesswork away and use photometry to take the guesswork out. And then we return those results to the app. If you were to take apart one of our cartridges, this is what it would look like. And these are the same reagents that are right here in this test kit. So as you can see, if you look at the screen, this is the size of that microfluidic chip. Very, very small. About a pencil head is about the size of that. And then as you can see inside, this is what is inside the cartridge. So the cartridge comes with 100 tests built in, running 3 tests a day. And in running 3 tests a day for 30 days, when it expires, you get about 5 minutes a month in maintenance on Sutro. What does that maintenance look like for 5 minutes? Well, that cartridge that we just shared to you is automatically shipped to you by Sutro. The robot flags when it needs a new chip, and it flags our system to send you one. So every month you'll get a little box, and this little cartridge will come in it, and your app will say, your Sutro is going to need service soon. And then it will enter what we call service mode. It will say, okay, now Sutro needs service now. Well, at the same time in Sutro, there's a rechargeable battery. It looks like this. You get 2 of these with every Sutro. One is in the product itself while it's working. The other is in the transmitter, which also acts like a charger bay. So this is where your second battery would be. And then this is the transmitter that we talked about in the earlier part. So your maintenance, if this was the Sutro you had, you basically would unscrew the top like the old flux capacitor in Back to the Future, if you're old enough to know that, right? Pops up just like that. The cartridge goes in this side. If you flip it over, the battery goes in this side. The app tells you to close it. You'll hear a click. You throw it back in the pool, and the app calibrates the unit itself. That's it. That's the maintenance. There's no cleaning, there's no calibration, there's no, anything else required. Then it will tell you generating new readings, and then you'll start to see your new readings come out after that. So basically, all that guesswork is gone, and for 5 minutes a month, you basically have to, change the battery and change the cartridge. So basically cutting it, I'm sorry, we put this, I should have put a big G on this one. So for the dogs would have been on that, would have been a better football team. So with that said, cutting edge technology and support is provided now. So you use technology to take care of that. I mean, I don't know what you folks have invested in your pool, but I know the pool I'm looking at was $180,000. And if you're going to invest that kind of money, in whose hands are you going to place responsibility to take care of it? Because poor water chemistry not only impacts, the folks that swim in it, right? Your kids have itchy eyes or red eyes, and you have bleaching in your plaster, as we talked about. You might have etching in your plaster. You'll have failure in your heaters and your salt generators and in your filters, because poor water chemistry affects all your equipment as well. So keeping that pool maintained ensures that you have less warranty issue, less pump failure, less problem with taking care of this investment. So I don't know if you use a pool store, but we provide tools for some of your pool store support guys where they can see your water chemistry as well and help you manage your water chemistry if you feel like you don't want to do it on your own. So if you have applications where your service techs, like we talked about, or your pool service folks want to help, or you want them to help you because you're going to buy your chemicals there, then let us know. We have free tools that we can give your pool stores to help you and see your water chemistry, as well as the test. When you go in for a water test, they can put your water test in our software, as well as see your Sutro readings. So this is a free tool for them to help you manage that pool better. But when you buy chemicals, when you buy your chemicals inside the Sutro app, I'll show you this one on my Sutro real quick here. I'm not going to show you my water chemistry because it would be embarrassing to show you what it looked like.
I was going to say I would show mine, but No,
I'll show you. There you go. Perfect. Look, so if you know you're doing the right job, Sutro says, ready for a swim. My spa, this isn't my spa, by the way, not my pool, because that would be a warm pool. That might be Texas, I think, in the summer. That is my my spa, and it says perfect for a swim. And then if I wanted to go in and look, you can see the water history. Well, I don't know if you can see, right? There's my actual spa readings, right? And then all the history below shows up. So there's the historical graph of my spa for pH. And I can run those same historical graphs for alkalinity and free chlorine as well. And they all appear in this app. Also in the app itself, there's a little drop down marked chemicals. When I click on chemicals, it will ask me to scan the barcodes of my chemicals into the app. When I do that, it translates its recommendations into specific recommendations based on what I've scanned in. So if you're using anybody's chemicals, it doesn't matter. We're agnostic to chemical. We'll take what you scanned in and turn it into a specific dosing instruction. So we'll say 3 cups of BioGuard or 2 cups of HTH or whatever you're using, and we'll make it specific to you. And it asks you for primary sanitizer, secondary, pH up, pH down. So you can mix and match chemicals if you buy your chemicals from different places as well. If you also clicked on the other, I'll wait for it to load. There's an icon marked hardware. If you want to see the status of Sutro, am I connected to Wi-Fi? Yes. How many tests do I have left in my cartridge? And then what's the battery strength of the battery that's in the charger? Is it ready to go? So you can see the status of this at any time. Am I connected to Wi-Fi? Yes. I have so many tests left. Good. I'm good to go. So the app is fully able to show you everything you're going to need to see and everything you need in order to manage and take care of your pool or spa. So that's the high level for Sutro. And here's where we can kind of dip in a little bit and stop and ask you guys some questions, because at the end of the day, you just want your pool to be safe and balanced for your family. That's why you bought it. You don't want to spend hours upon hours trying to take care of it, which is what a lot of people do. And you also want it to be a good bathing experience, and you don't want people with, as I said, itchy eyes and things like that. So we take the guesswork out of ensuring your family ends up enjoying your investment. Questions?
Hey, this is Paul. So going into this, not knowing anything about testing and just what I'm reading online, one of the biggest things that detractors of this say, and there are also probably people that have never used it before, is that it doesn't test for enough. I keep hearing phosphates. What about phosphates? If I have to get those tested anyway, this doesn't do it. What's the point in using this if I have to do other tests anyway?
Well, and that's a great question, because you in this pool industry, what I have found, and I've been in it way too long now, there are very different understandings and different schools of thought about how water chemistry should be dealt with. Range chemistry, ORP, LSIs, right? You can hear all this stuff being thrown around that people believe or don't believe in these various things. Sutro is not designed to replace the water test. We do not test today for things like phosphates and borates and all the other things that some folks subscribe. But again, a lot of those things don't move as quickly. And for example, if you have borates in your pool, if you subscribe to that, then you don't test for borates for 60 days or maybe 90 days, depending on your application. But your free chlorine and your pH and your alkalinity, they change violently, especially in markets like yours in Texas and Georgia, right? You subject your pool to a full day of UV, that's a different pool than it was the morning it started. So we are the heartbeat for your pool. If the 3 parameters, and most people will agree, if the 3 parameters that we test for, the free chlorine, the pH, and the alkalinity, are in line, 95% of the pools will be okay. And they'll be all right. And in between visits or in between larger tests, which you might take into your pool store, as I mentioned, the tools, to have them run a full water test. It's like going to the doctor now and having a full blood panel, right? Or just going in for a checkup. Different things being done to your pool in order to ensure over time that you have your investment. So for the folks that say, hey, it doesn't test for that, most folks in our space will agree that if those 3 parameters are okay, your pool is okay. And the evolution of our product is that if it's a reagent-based test, at some point we could test for other things. But if we made that robot any bigger, you wouldn't want it floating in your pool. It'd be as big as one of your kids.
Yeah, Jim, if I could jump in for a second, I've used Sutro for a couple of years in my pool. I live in Houston, so definitely have some UV challenges, and I use liquid chlorine. in my pool. But the way I kind of look at Sutro is it's cruise control. So I get my pool on the interstate, so I get it balanced and everything's looking good. And then I just use Sutro to keep it between the lines. And then if something happens, say it's a heavy rain event or we have a party or whatever, I may need to go, make some bigger adjustments. And so literally, I test my other parameters probably once every 3 weeks, because I understand my pool now. I kind of know how it behaves when it rains or when we have a party or whatever. So I think the key to it is exactly what Jim said, and getting it right in the beginning, and then just keeping it on cruise control and doing those other tests less frequently, because he's right, they really don't change that often unless there's a huge event of some sort.
If I can just add, so prior, I've only been a Sutro customer now for what, I think like a week, maybe 2 weeks at most. But the reason why I switched over is I had Finn for probably 3 years, and there's so much hate on Finn online because of the way that it tests and their method, which is completely different than Sutro. I got to tell you guys, I never had an issue with my Finn, right? But what I did used to do is once a month when I used to go to the pool store to get chemicals, etc., I just used to bring a water sample. And I got to tell you guys, I think I did like 2-3 years. There was a point where my name was even on like a little, they give you like, if you had like consistent, like positive pool testing, like they would, you know how the stores do it, right? So it worked fairly well for us as well. And that was Finn, right? Finn, now listening to you guys, it doesn't sound like it's remotely close. It wasn't actually doing a chemical test, right? It was just using ORP technology. Is that what you mentioned, Jim? So, but again, so I'm new to Sutro. I wish I could give you guys some feedback here. I will say that my pool was way off when I got it. It wasn't the result of Sutro. It was the result of my pool just being way off. And it works.
Yep. And it is a work in progress, right? We are constantly evolving the technology. As I said, the cartridge is evolving. We'll be looking at things like inline versions next year, where you actually could take the Sutro and put it on the pool pad and it doesn't have to float. But right now it floats for a reason. And some of the things that folks don't understand is that, they'll say, oh, geez, why is it so big? And there's two answers to your question. One is you have to take your water sample at the same depth every time to get a consistent reading. If you vary the depths of your test, right, if you take it at the top one time and the bottom of the next time, right, you're going to get a different reading because you're taking different samples of water. Well, Sutro is 14 inches long. It takes it at the exact same depth every time, and it takes it below the UV line. So you don't get, if you take a test off the top, if you skim the top, you're getting the layer of water where the sun has burned off all the chlorine. It would be a different reading. When what most people don't understand is if they run their pumps or they run a fountain or they've got over spillways from their hot tubs into their pool, any type of aeration like that creates a fluctuation in pH. So if you take your reading while your pumps and your spillovers are on, your pH will be different than when you shut your pumps off. So you got to remember, taking 3 tests a day at the right depth, consistency is the key to maintenance. It's just like fitness. You take it 3 times a day at the same depth every day, all day, and it gives you consistent data. And as we started, a water test is a snapshot. It just takes a picture of that minute of that time. Sutro gives you that ability to see the historical data of that same test and compare it. And then, of course, we're not eliminating the need for, as Glenn indicated, a full water test, on a regular basis. But again, borates and phosphates and stuff, they are not things that you're going to want to test for daily. And those spin touch tests, some stores charge $2-3, for those types of water tests. So if you don't need to test for it, it's a little overkill.
Hey, Jim, I got a question for you if you don't mind. Any Alexa integration? I know you guys are probably all going to think now on the call that I'm like the laziest man on earth, right? But to wake up in the morning and just be able to ask Alexa to check for my pool's chemistry and get the readings without having to look at my phone would be pretty awesome. Any plans of any type of home assistant integrations in the future?
We're looking at integration for things like, let's say, Google Home, right? So everything else is on an app, right? I can see cameras, I can see door locks. So why not your pool?
I see
So-
Paul is another one on my side here. It seems he likes simplicity as well.
Yeah, and everybody wants one app, right, for everything, right? Because we're all, our phones are, we've got apps for cameras, apps for doors. I got an Amazon, you've got them all. So the industry is not yet consolidated to the point where there is a one point of access, but they're trying to do that. People are jockeying for that number one position, but we are going to integrate into Google. We're integrated into Alexa, so you'll have those functionalities. And then more industry oriented, we will integrate into some of the vendors. And we are looking at integration of some of their apps like the Pentairs. We are integrated, by the way, into Jacuzzi. If you have a Jacuzzi or a Sundance spa and you use their Smart Tub app, you can now get Sutro readings within the Jacuzzi app. So that was recently launched. So we are following that trend to want to create a one-stop view for everything. But up until 2 weeks ago, right? Jacuzzi didn't have the ability to see water chemistry. They would give you everything else. You could turn on pumps and most of the stuff from Pentair, Hayward, and Jandy, you can control pumps and heaters and lights, but they give you an ORP sensor, right, as part of their package, or they'll give you a rainbow tab feeder for Pentair, right? So you put in hot, the little chlorine pucks, which is a solution, but as we talked about, they have CYA, which is going to become an issue in your pool over time. So there's all kinds of misinformation or basically whatever the technology was is what was being used to take care of pools. And as Glenn indicated, I mean, he's using liquid chlorine. So, again, different schools of thought in terms of what types of products you want to use. And I heard one of you was using salt. So again, different variations of how you're going to take care of your pool. And salt is one of those that, you've got people that like it and you got people that don't. It's a very interesting industry to be in, and is in the pool business.
I think what happens is you got a bunch of YouTube trained pool professionals, myself included at times, that I think I know what I'm talking about, but sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
Well, I have YouTube mechanics and electricians and everything else. I use YouTube.
And let me tell you, and I'll give you some examples as you're building a new pool or you're taking care of it. When something goes wrong with that pool, let's say filters fail or you start to get problems with your plaster, it's an incredible ecosystem of who's responsible. And they point fingers at everybody. And then you can ultimately say it comes right down to water chemistry. And we find the biggest issue with Pentair and Hayward and Jandy on equipment is bad water chemistry. The number one problem with plaster is poor water chemistry. So if you could get that right, you could really limit the number of issues you would have. So to get back to the original point, Paul, was this is going to be a maintenance tool for you. It's not a cure-all. It's a maintenance tool to give you the ability to keep your pool in balance, over time, so that you don't have issues with bather problems, and of course now with your structure and or with your equipment. So that's really the value. And next year it'll be in line. You won't even have to float it. And we will take more, potentially more readings once it's in line, right? Then we can grow the form factor to be a little bigger.
Hey, Jim, I got a question for you. One more. Sorry, guys. I mean, if nobody has questions, I'm going to ask all the questions here. Next question that I have for you is, obviously, again, I've been using it now for about a week, 2 weeks here. I love the fact that it doesn't just tell you the chemistry when you scan your chemicals, right? It tells you exactly like how much, what to add, what to put in your pool to address the issue, right? Which I think it's a no-brainer. But my question is, what if I don't see the chemicals that I'm using on my app? What do you guys, how do you guys work that, right? Say,
Yep. Of course, there's a lot of, I would say, holes in the database due to the fact that there's a lot of, let's say, vanity or branded chemicals, right? They might be made, by the way, they're made by the same people. They just put them on different buckets. But the barcode that's on those, if you scan it and it comes up not in our database, you basically take a picture of that, take a picture of the bucket and send it to us through the app, and we will add it to the database. So it's an ever increasing database of chemicals, but we've got most of the majors in there. But again, there's a lot of vanity stuff on the side that may have slipped through the crack. And if it did, just let us know. We're happy to add it too. And we're also standing by to help you. We don't just provide, help on the product. If you need help with your chemistry, we also have relationships with folks in your local markets that can come out and help you. So Sutro is not, it's never going to, get the leaves out of your pool. It's never going to clean your filter. It's never going to do any of those things. But we can help you get the services you need in order to help you take care of it.
Awesome.
So Jim, I have one quick question. I know you did mention that it could be used for salt water pools. Do the what it's measuring change if it is a saltwater pool versus full chlorine? I know if saltwater becomes chlorine, but does it actually change what you're looking at if it's saltwater versus chlorine?
Yeah, the only thing we don't measure for yet is salinity, right? What is the actual salinity of the pool? But as you know, right, salt is a forever cycle, right? It'll turn into chlorine, and then it goes through your salt gen, and it'll turn back. So you just keep recycling it. So we do use the chlorine measurement as the barometer for the effectiveness of the sanitizer. And the next generation of it will actually connect to your salt gen, and we'll look at the pool and we'll indicate, hey, do I need to run this salt generator a little longer, or do I need to slow the cycle down? We're working with a couple of feeder type companies too. Do I need to add more and keep the filter or the pump running longer, or do I need to slow that duration to get the residual levels down? Same as salt, right? You have to run your salt generator for a certain period of time in order to get your residual up. So we're measuring that chlorine as you generate chlorine from your generator.
So are the directions of what you need to do, will it actually indicate if you need to put more salt in it? Like I'm literally a brand new pool owner. I know absolutely nothing. So will it say obviously for a saltwater pool, you're probably not putting all the same chemicals. So will it?
It doesn't,
Yeah,
it doesn't check for salt. It doesn't yet check for salinity. That's the only test for you that it won't test, but everything else would be the same. I mean, it's chlorine at the end of the day. And what you might be looking at is you might have to turn your generator up or down depending on the readings over time. So for you, especially with salt, and because you kind of have to regulate how long or how short that generator runs, you're able to see over time, oh, I should turn it up a little bit. It's staying down at 1.5 and I wanted it 2. So I'll run it a little longer to get it to 2. Or,
so
hey, oh
I
my
would
gosh.
up my chlorine levels by
Right.
running. Okay.
Yep. And Glenn, you do that with your HLF too, right? Glenn, you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, I do. I was going to say, I have a friend, colleague at work who has a Sutro as well. He has a new saltwater pool. It's a year old now, but new saltwater pool. And we talk all the time, and he manages his salt feeder the same way I manage my liquid chlorine feeder. He sees when the chlorine is dropping on the app, he can tweak it. And now he knows his pool, and when you get a pool, I mean, one thing, it's a relationship with that swimming pool. You can't just leave it out there and ignore it. Like you'll learn how it behaves, what it wants. It's almost like a dog or a child. You have to take care of it and listen to it. And I look at Sutro as something to help me listen to, it's like a baby monitor. I'm listening to see what's going on out there and what does that pool need, and I can jump on it right away before it gets out of control. But yeah, to answer the question, a long-winded answer to, yes, it will work with any pool, no matter whether you use UV, ozone, whatever. You still need a sanitizer in there. Sutro measures for the sanitizer, so it's it looks at that whole ecosystem. And today, you have to kind of interpret some of that and understand your pool and what you need to tweak. But in the future, I think they have plans to, like Jim said, be more integrated and maybe do some.
Yeah, and you'll see when you set up your pool, you'll actually say what is your primary sanitizer, and you'll say salt, right? It'll ask you what your sanitizer is. So yeah, we take it into consider, and you can also use when you use ozone and UV, also takes that into consideration as well. Because some people like to run their chlorine lower, right, at a lower level if you're using ozone.
When you say the future version will test saline, is it something that you'll be able to update? Like if we bought it now, would it be able to update, or will we have to rebuy it in the future to have that capability?
I'm not sure yet on the roadmap, but what I can tell you is, for example, in the cartridge that we showed you, right, you can see individual vials here. So in this iteration, in today's model, we run two reagents are required to get free chlorine. It's called DPD A and B. So we run those, right? But if we could get that chlorine test in one vial, right, that might open up another vial. When we run alkalinity is a titration, which means we actually drop a drop, shake it, look at it, adjust it, add another drop until it changes color, which gives you that alkalinity reading. Well, you need 2 vials to do that. So if we could get it to 1 vial, that would open up another one. So this cartridge in its current form could support other tests. But as I said, if we go inline, then that cartridge could, or maybe we might have an additional cartridge come out that does test for calcium hardness and borates and salt, right? We might add that secondary cartridge because you'd have a maintenance cartridge like the one we talked about for daily use. And maybe you've got one you put in once a month and run a couple tests to see what those parameters look like. But that is all on the roadmap for 2023. But as of today, it is what it will be in its current form factor for the foreseeable future.
Hey, Jennifer, so I actually have a saltwater pool myself, right? So I think as these guys mentioned, typically once you get to know the pool, once you see the chlorine start to drop, there's either a sanitizer issue or you don't have enough salt, right, in your pool.
Right.
I bought a TDS tester on Amazon a few years back. I think it was like $10. I literally once a month, I just scoop a cup from at least like 12, inches below the pool line, bring it out and just use the TDS tester and just use that. And it'll tell you exactly how many, parts per minute or particles per minute. I don't even know the term, Jim, here, but it'll tell you, where it is. And I want to say our saltwater generator, which is a Hayward, needs to be somewhere around like 3,300 ppm. So it works really, really well. And I think I paid like 10 to 20 bucks on Amazon. If you look up TDS.
Yeah, I just actually looked it up. Yeah, like I said, I'm a brand new pool owner and I actually am just putting in salt. So I'm trying to educate myself.
The funny thing about it is, so that's why I started the group, right? I started this group 5 years ago because I bought a house with a pool. I've never owned a house with a pool, let alone salt water and everything else. And I did know one thing, and that's I sure as heck don't want to have to call a contractor or somebody to come fix every little thing that I know that I can do myself, whether it's pool chemistry, et cetera. And here we are today. So
Well, I'll tell you the book, I don't have it with me, but if you could see the size of the manual to understand water chemistry, I mean, it's a 3-day program to understand water chemistry. Now, some techs can take a 1-day, 8-hour course and become AKA certified, but to understand the real water chemistry, the book is huge. There are things you shouldn't add together, right? People mix chemicals randomly in a bucket, right? You're talking about chemicals that are caustic and or potentially explosive if you're not careful. So you don't want to be, doing this thing. It's not as easy as people think to take this on. Hence why they usually go to a service guy to do it. But that's not always the solution either. So even if you had a service guy, you still might consider Sutro as a way to manage and monitor what's going on. And by the way, service guys come once a week. What happens for those 6 days between visits is very important of what you do for those 6 days, because if you don't do anything and you rely on it, you could have some issues, even though you may be paying a service technician to do it. And some of the better techs that we talk to are going to implement this. They charge a little more, but they might come back on Monday when they can see remotely what your water chemistry looks like instead of having to drive to your house and go to the yard and run the test, right? So if I could see what your pool looked like, I could determine which pools in my route needed me to get out there today versus which ones needed me, or I'm just going to go out every Wednesday and until I walk into the backyard, I don't know what I'm walking into, right? So the idea here is visibility, right? And information and data. How do I use the data that you're given, right? So when you take a test strip, you're getting data. Well, what do you do with it? Well, you don't know. What do I add? I mean, to your point, I'm a new pool owner. Well, I just got my test strip and it says it's, down below this color. Well, how much do I add to my, my pool now to make it the right color? And there's a lot of guessing there, and there's a lot of money being spent, and a lot of people working at pool stores that shouldn't be, that are trying to make you buy things you don't need, and over trying to commit you because you don't know. It's a very interesting market, but I urge you to read up on water chemistry because it's not as easy as just, hey, it's chlorine, just throw it in. This is a sophisticated, as I said, it's a robot, and it actually is running a true test, as you would run as if you were running on a very expensive spin touch in your water test platform.
I have a question.
Yes,
Is there any disadvantages or advantages for this system as far as type of pool you have, fiberglass versus plaster versus vinyl?
Nope, they're all, water chemistry affects, gunite. Water chemistry can bubble up fiberglass. right? pH can affect your fiberglass pools. And again, a fiberglass pool has equipment connected to it. So again, the same ecosystem exists. It's just different how it impacts or interacts with, for example, I've known some folks from the National Plasterers Council that are seeing wrong water chemistry. If you've got a PebbleTech pool with red stones, 6 months in, those stones are pink. And now you got to go ahead and have this thing drained and scraped and then replastered or re-PebbleTech. So and in fiberglass, if you let the chemistry go, you can get bubbling or etching within that fiberglass. So yeah, it doesn't matter what you have, but all those types of materials are definitely affected by water chemistry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions?
So what does hardware support look like? A season from now, battery dies, I throw the unit back in the pool without putting the lid on. What do you do in those situations, or just something just stops working?
Well, if you follow the app is really intuitive, and it walks you through things like when you go into service mode. So you don't do anything to Sutro until it tells you to. Because it is, again, a working robot that actually follows the app's direction. So if you were to try to throw it back in the pool and cause failure, right, there is a warranty on it. So you would basically call us and we would diagnose it and then replace it as needed. We're pretty good about replacing it as long as you're on our service and as long as your dog didn't, use it as a play toy. We're pretty good at providing it a replacement unit for you as long as you're staying on the cartridge service. Yeah. We've had some interesting stories though that we could certainly share with you. And a dog did try to eat one. It pulls on the tether and thought it was a play toy.
Not surprised.
It would have to be a pretty big dog too, because it's a pretty big.
I think even if I remember correctly, because I think I did it wrong the first time and I didn't hear the click,
Yep.
and I placed it in the water to float. I think it told me that it wasn't closed all the way.
Well, it'll give you a check. It'll give you a check mark that says,
Yeah.
"Hey, unit's not closed." Yeah, it'll check it off
Yep.
for you. Yeah, and it won't let you put it in the water until it clears. And if it finds an error, it will say, battery not at 100%. Right? It won't let you go forward. It won't let you continue.
As long as you didn't have too many cocktails before closing the lid and working on it, you should be all right. I'm assuming.
And speaking of that, this is also a sobriety test too. We actually can take a sobriety test in the bottom. So if you breathe into it, we can test your alcohol level. So that's one of the tests we run is alcoholinity too, especially for spas when you get a pool party.
Awesome. Jonathan Bear has a question here.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask in terms of the Wi-Fi connectivity. Is it dual band in terms of both 2, 4, and 5, or
Just
is it
2,
one or
4.
the other?
Just 2,
Okay.
4. Yeah.
I have a mesh system, and again, I'm sorry, I'm chipping in here, but I just got the unit, a couple of weeks back. But I have a Orbi mesh. I mean, the thing synced up fairly easy with it. So
Yep. If you have Wi-Fi connectivity issues, and some people do because of the location of their router, or because, of course, you're talking about water, you're talking about concrete, and some people have very elaborate hardscape. And sometimes their pools are way in the backyard, around the corner, or away from where the Wi-Fi signal might be. We do have the alternative for LTE. So if you cannot get Wi-Fi connectivity, you should call us and we can flip you on to our LTE signal, which is a direct connection to AT&T or T-Mobile. And then if you have those capabilities, we can connect to those sites as a backup. And both radios are in the transmitter, so we can toggle between the two. And there's no additional charge for the LTE service.
that's pretty awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, Wi-Fi is one of those things where you either have it in the backyard or you don't. And the router does require a connection to the cloud, right, in order to report, the readings to the app. So we give you some alternatives to take that into consideration.
And for the LTE, it's the same piece of equipment, right? So
Yeah, nothing changes. We just there's a
okay.
little button sequence that customer service would run you through and say, push this button and this button at the same time, and this light will turn blue. And when it does, you're connected now, and you'll see the connection will be solid up to connected to an LTE network.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jonathan, do you have another question, or is your hand still up from the last one?
Oh, no, sorry. That was it.
It's all right. I just want to make
There we
sure.
go. Thank you.
And again, one of the things that I did for you guys is I placed on the chat, and I'll place it again, a 10% off coupon for those of you guys that are interested in, in purchasing a unit. So I'll put that in the chat right now for everybody to see. Before we do the drawing for the gift card here, does anybody have any questions?
One last question, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
The 3 times a day that it tests, is that customizable? Is it preset? How does it determine that?
Today it is it's set for 3 times a day, but we are going to be launching an ability to change those numbers of readings. It'll be a slide. How many do you want to take per day? Because in some cases you don't need 3, right? And in some cases you actually, in some states, you require 4. So yeah, you'll have the ability to toggle that shortly.
It was geared more towards how does it determine what time during the day it does the testing?
It's PST. It's based on Pacific time. Yeah. So when it goes in, it starts running it every 8 hours.
How does it know, like, is there a default, like mine, for example? I know it tests at 2:13. Is it in the morning? Right.
Yeah,
Is it all depending on when you set it up, what time you set it up the first time?
Yeah, it'll do it at preset California time, but it runs it 3 times a day. Eventually it'll do a prorate on the first one, or because it runs it'll say generating reading.
Yeah.
So it'll run a test, and then it will wait for the next cycle, and then it'll test at that time again. Yeah.
Got it. So it's certain hours.
It's all
And I
set
have one more question, too.
set to the same. Yeah.
So do you keep it in the pool? Like I see your picture with like a bunch of kids in it. If you're having a pool party, you have a bunch of people there. Do you keep it in? Do you pull it out if people are in the pool? Like how often does it stay in?
Well, it looks like with the kid in the picture, I wouldn't leave it in because he looks like he'd go take it. It would be a football within the first 10 minutes, right? But you can leave it in, or it does come with a tether that locks it. If you have a stairs or grommets or something, you can tether it to. But you can take it out. It does not affect it. It is not a sensor. It does not need to stay wet. But as long as you place it back in the water, it's fine. Yep.
We keep ours tethered in the pool.
Yeah, you can leave it in, but again, it doesn't hurt it. Like, for example, if you put it in a spa, you don't want it floating around while you're in the spa. It's a small body of water. So you take it out, place it on the ground, and then when you're done, you place it back in. And if it missed the test, it'll show missed test. If it was out of the water when it took a test or tried to, it'll show a failure of a test, which just means it'll miss it.
And you can also pause the readings too. If it's going to be out for an extended period, say you need to do some maintenance on your pool or something, you can actually go to the website and toggle it off so you can save your tests.
Right. Exactly.
I think one of my favorite parts about this compared to when I have Finn, obviously Finn's no longer in existence as they discontinued their service, which is what led to the idea of doing this webinar. But I like the fact that the unit is so big that even if it's not like tethered, like held down by the steps, it does not float in my skimmer. That was annoying because as soon as my fin would always end up in my skimmer at any point.
Fin would end up like that because it was bottom heavy.
Yep.
So it would end up in there and it would sit flat. Yeah.
There's no way you're getting this thing in the skimmer. With this thing's got to weigh at least like 5 pounds.
Yeah, I launched Fin when it first started.
Awesome. Yep. Anybody else? Any other questions? All right. So what we're going to do is I put everybody's name. I got Jennifer. We're going to put your name in here. We have Claudia. We have Jonathan Bear. Paul. Nicholas. And Nina. Don't mind my little, I had to find whatever I had, near my desk here, so.
My name is not in there.
Your name?
Philip.
Oh, nope, I do not have your name. Let's get that in there. Heck
and
yeah.
My name's not in there either, Ray.
What, Jim, you don't qualify for this. Sorry. You didn't read the disclaimer.
There's a little asterisk. I didn't see it. Sorry.
All right, we're going to put Philip's name in here. There you go, Philip. Wish I had like one of my kids to come in here and pick a random number. That would have been awesome, but. All right, let's see. Nicholas, you won the $100 gift card, sir. Are you there?
You got too excited, Roy.
Yeah, he got too excited.
Fell off.
Unless he fell off.
Yeah, you have to be present to win, don't you?
Yep, so let's go 10, 9. Yeah, what do you guys think is a fair amount of time to give Nicholas to claim his price here?
Yeah, it looks like he's not connected to audio. I don't see his microphone on there.
Just seeing if for any reason he sends it. Nope, no, he did not send it via message either or chat.
Nope. See
Going
store for
once,
details.
Going twice. No. All right. Well, somebody else is going to get lucky here. Says Ray Arroyo. No, I'm just kidding. Nina, are you on the call? I think she's on mute.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Hey,
you won the $100 gift card.
Thanks a lot, but I will gladly forward it to someone else. I'm just here for some info. I'm from Croatia, so it's a bit far for me to order it all the way from US.
Ah, Croatia. Yeah.
Croatia. Well, we'll give it to somebody else here.
Cheers.
Glenn, we might be the last two standing, Glenn, you and I. Yeah.
We can split it, I guess. Right?
Yeah. Barbecue. That's what we're getting.
There you go.
Jennifer.
Nice. I'm excited about that.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Are you
Brand
going to
new
pass it on to the
tool.
next
I'll
person?
take it. And Jim,
Congratulations.
is it possible to either get access to this recording or to this PowerPoint presentation? I obviously saw the website, but curious for a little bit more info.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
So we
and you can
record-
certainly call us too. And you can call us. We've got trained folks on the phone that can walk you through anything in understanding water chemistry. And if we don't know the answer, we have several partners that will help you with water chemistry as well that are local to your market.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys mentioned it. I was thinking of getting a pool maintenance person and I was like, that's stupid. I know it's just something I've just got to learn. And once I learn it, everyone says, especially with saltwater, that it's not
super
hard
easy.
once you learn it. You just got to do it. So
It is super, super easy.
Yeah.
I was actually kind of like, when I first got our pool up north in my house in Pennsylvania, I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I think it took me like a month and I got comfortable with how everything works. So
Yeah. Yeah.
perfect.
Not
And
that
yeah, and
hard.
I'm in Connecticut, so that's also the hard part is that.
Oh,
like,
is that right? Well,
Yeah,
you're
so
getting
once
snow,
you open it, you
snow
only have
today.
2
So
months.
you're getting snow today. You don't care about pool
Huge,
water
yeah,
chemistry,
huge blizzard
right?
today. Which is why I'm dreaming about pool use, if you
Right,
want to know.
Yeah.